Hello, welcome to N=25, and following on from N=24. N=24 was all about how we were going to do a custom presenter, and that custom presenter was about a split view. And this time, rather than talking about split view presenter, which was very much about iOS, this time I'm going to talk about tabs. And I got a quick presentation available about tabs. So tabs, you're all really familiar with tabs, iOS in particular. It's this area at the bottom where oops, I don't know what that's about. It's this area at the bottom where you have your, tab controls, and you can, use them to display, to change between different pages. So you can go between page 1 and page 2 and page 3. And the important thing here is that this is almost always a user thing. Yeah, the user normally selects which tab is visible because they want to go to the Sessions tab, or they want to go to the Authors tab, or they want to go to the Places tab. It's not something the app should normally change. It's something the user normally changes. And the experience is pretty much the same across iPhone and Android. There's differences about where the tabs are located, whether they're at the top or the bottom of the page. Windows, in particular Windows Phone, is a bit different. Windows Store is more about kind of the grid view, and that kind of fits in the same sort of thing as Windows Phone, where you have a panorama or a pivot. So we've got here in this picture, this is a panorama control, and you can see there's kind of 3 or 4 sections. We've got, I think there's just 3. I think with the panorama, your limitations are that you always have to have at least 3 of these guys, and you shouldn't have too many because it doesn't do virtualization of them. And the second type of control you get, the second kind of tab control you get here, is this pivot control. And you can see again, it's slightly different in the way it's laid out, but it is basically a select a different section. So you can see that kind of maps to a pivot, from a pivot or panorama to tabs, just by these different sections, 1, 2, or 3. And it is a touch gesture to go between them, although they do also kind of, as well as the tap, they also have the swipe to go between these different sections. So that's what tabs are, and that's how they're used in different platforms. There's also one other slight difference in tabs between the platforms, in that Android and Windows Phone, they don't tend to do navigation within the tabs, whereas iOS tends to do navigation within. So let's just take a look at that. So for navigation, if you are in page 1, inside tab 1, and you click something, which means you're going to go to a page 2, then what generally happens is the entire page is replaced. Yeah, so you no longer get those tabs at the bottom. You just get this child 1 displayed. However, if you're inside iOS and you go to child 1, then generally what happens, it can happen differently, but generally what happens is the navigation happens within the tab child. So generally what will happen is that child 1 will get brought in like that, and then in the navigation bar at the top here you'll have a back option, and that back option will enable you to go back to page 1. So just to show that again, on Android and Windows what generally happens is you navigate the entire page away from the tabs, whereas on iOS you generally navigate within the tab. So that's what we're going to try and replicate here, and let's dive into it. So if we dive away from the PowerPoint and go into code, and within N+1, let's create a portable class library, as we always do, and this is going to be N25, and this is going to be let's call this tabbed.core, and in fact let's just split this out and let's give it a slightly better name. Done and done. So we've got tabs.core in N25. It's going to be portable class library. You know which platforms we're going to go for because we've been through 25 of these now. So we set this up. Immediately we're going to add our NuGet package for MvvmCross. Gosh, things are running very slowly. I hope this is recording okay. And we are going to install that. And then what we'll do is we'll get rid of that default class 1. We will create some tabs for us. So we've got a first view model. And generally the way that I split up my tabs is if I've got a home view model which has got these tabs in there, or a first view model in this case. Then each child tab I'll give its own view model. So let's just do that. So we're going to call them child1 view model, and I've missed the class keyword. So here's our child1. I won't even give it any functionality. There's nothing we need in there at the moment, and I'll create another couple of those. So there we have 3 children, and what I'll do is I will just put those 3 children as member variables in this as properties in this first view model. So let's just do that. And so this is a child1 view model. So that's that one done, and I can do another 2 of those. And generally you wouldn't need all of this kind of paraphernalia around the, you don't need raise property change, because another thing about tabs is generally they are fixed. You don't normally as a user expect to see tabs appearing and disappearing from underneath you. You kind of expect them to be in their locations, and the same goes on Windows in Panorama and Pivot. They're not really dynamic objects, they tend to be just normal objects that just sit there. So let's just create them in a constructor, and we will have child1 equals new child1 view model, and similarly down. Okay, and it looks like I forgot to change a couple of things. So there's our 3 child view models, and hopefully that tabbed core will build. Okay, just to give them some interest, we could put a property inside each of these, so let's just do it. Child1 will have a property called foo. Going to run out of options here because I've only got 2 of them, and I will set the default foo to be hello foo. I've messed up my IntelliSense. And then child2 I will add again, same sort of thing. And this is going to have a string property called bar. Oops, underscore bar. Bar. And this can be hello bar. My keyboard seems to have gone into American while I've been away camping last week. So that's hello bar, and child3 could have a property, again we'll just quickly put one in, pmvx, and this one is going to be oink. And that could be 42. So those are our view models. Hopefully everything builds in the core because we haven't done anything too complicated. We will want to add a child one, so we can do that navigation later, but we'll do that again. So let's start by doing let's do Windows Phone first, just for a change. So we're going to go to Windows Phone app, and this is called tab.phone. And yeah, I apologize, this is running so slowly, I don't know why. And we hit that, okay. And we'll change the phone so that it starts set as startup project, and by default I'd like to start a Windows Phone 7 emulator, please. So that's our phone. We need to add our reference to the core. Okay, and then we need to add our references to MvvmCross. So we add it. And then what we need to do once we've done that is just these couple of to-do items. So there's a application launching to put into app.xaml.cs. And there's a setup bit of code to put into app.xaml.cs. There it is. Gosh, this is running very slowly. I don't know what it is just doing it, but there you go. Okay, so that's our phone project. That should hopefully build. Yep, so that built. No worries about that. But what we'd like to do is, currently our first view is kind of a standard page. What we'd like to do is we'd like to turn that into a pivot or a panorama. So I'm going to actually delete first view, and I'm going to replace it. So here we go, add new item. And we've got all these options, and just to make it pretty, I'll start with the panorama. You could have used a pivot just as easily, but I'm going to use a panorama. So I'm going to add it. I'm going to call it first view. Go off, it'll add that. As with the earlier tutorials we saw, we always have to change this to an MVX phone page. And ReSharper's giving us the import. Similarly here we have, XAML. We have to change its inheritance to a phone page. MVX phone page. Import type. And then once we've done that, what we should be able to do, although it's just not changed it down the bottom here, once it's done that, you should see we've got this kind of default panorama. And all we really want to do is we would like to have 3 items in the panorama, so let's do that. And we'd like to bind those 3 items to our child view models. So we've got these 3 items, and what we do is for the panorama item, we set its data context, and we set it according to the binding. So we do this, the first one is going to have its data context as child 1. The second one's going to be child 2, and the third one's going to be child 3. And if I just do that, then what you should see is in each of these we can put a different set of content. So let's just do that. We'll put a grid, and each one just had a text entry, so we'll do that, a text block, and the text we will bind to. And the binding here is, so the first one was bound to foo, and I'll just make the font size a bit larger. And once I've done that, we should hopefully be able to do that for all 3 items. Foo, I think the last one was, can't remember, what did I call it? First view model in the child, oink was what I called it, no wonder I can't remember. So we've got oink, foo and bar, and these, you'll notice, I don't have to do hello 2 or child2.bar or child1.foo, and that's because the data context for this parent item has been set to the child. So if I run this up, I hope, apart from the fact that my machine is running very slowly, let me close PowerPoint, see if that was the problem. And also Apple's come up, let's see if that's the problem. If we run this up, then hopefully we will see in this emulator that it runs up, and you can see we've got item 1 with a hello foo inside it, item 2 with a hello bar, and item 3 with 42. So the data binding's working fine. Let's just do one child action in there as well. So let's suppose that our first child, our child 1, also has a command in there. So let's just add one, public iCommand. And we're going to do iCommand. And this is a go command. This is going to return a new MVX command. And this is just simply going to show a view model. And we're going to show a view model which is a grandchild view model. Obviously we don't have the grandchild view model at the moment. So let's create one. Public class grandchild view model. It's going to inherit from MVX view model. And again, we could put a property in there. Let me call it _life. And then once you've got that, we can set that to a grandchild's name is Heidi. many of you may know, there is a grandpapa for Heidi. Right, so that's done. Let's just redo the ordering here. So that'll go to the bottom. And now you can see, so child 1 has this go command, and that's going to go to grandchild view model. And now what we can do is back in our client project in tab.phone, we can add a view for that grandchild. So this is a grandchild view. Naming conventions will just match these guys up. And as before, we need to take hold of it and we need to change it to an MvvmCross page. I do wonder what is taking up my processor, but I'm sure it'll be okay. And as before, we'll just change this to an MvvmCross page. Not sure what I just did. Hopefully that's pulled it in. No. Yeah, phone 1, is that right? No, that isn't what I wanted to do. Let me just, where is that being created? Delete that. For once, it didn't play nicely with me. So what I'd like it to do is to pull in that. And that's done that. And then just for data binding, I'll add a text block. Text equals, and what did I call the grandchild's property? Grandchild had a property called life, so I'll just bind life. Binding life, and again, just for readability, I'll set the font size equal to 40. Right, so the thing we haven't done at the moment is put in any kind of button or anything to do with navigation, so let's just do that. Add a button to child 1, to its item. Its content we will set to be go, and its text, its command, sorry, we will bind to the go command. And obviously at the moment my layout's not going to look very good, so let me just put all that in the stack panel. And now what we should do when we run this up is we should see exactly the sort of parent navigation that we expected, the whole page navigation when we hit go. So let's just do that. So you can see we've got our item 1, item 2, item 3. If we hit go, the whole page navigates, and you no longer get your panorama. If you hit back, then you get back to the panorama. And that's the way it's set up, and that's, you know, a tab, if you like, tab display done inside Windows Phone. Yeah. So that's Windows Phone. Let's move on to Android. I think that's the basis for our sample. And with Android, you will discover I copy some templates across, and that's just because I can't be bothered to remember how to do these things. You know, it's always a case of looking them up. I don't know how I programmed before Stack Overflow and the web and Google, and because it's not Google Bing, but that's, you know, life nowadays is the way I program. So we've got tabbed.droid as our next application. There are choices about whether you go up to ice cream sandwich and beyond here, because if you do, you get better style tabs. There's also a different way of doing tabs, which I'm not going to talk about in this N+1, which is you can do tabs using fragments, and I'll talk about fragments hopefully in an upcoming N+1. Right now I'm just going to stick to kind of the old style Android and Android 2 and Android 1 and talk about activities for tabs. So let's dive in. Tab.Android creator. And what I'd like for tab.Android is I would like, again, I don't need to update these latest things right now. What I'd like to do is to manage my NuGet packages to pull in MvvmCross. Gosh, it's running slowly. I wonder what I've done to upset it, whether it's a Android issue at this second. I'm sure we'll find out. So I add my tab.droid, and I'm also going to add a reference to my core. Let's add them in. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to just check. I don't think there's anything else I need to do there. So I'm just going to delete the old activity 1. That's no longer needed. And what I need to do is I need to look at my first view, and obviously my resources for my first view. So a couple of things. First of all, my first view at the moment inherits from MVX activity, and really I need to inherit from MVX tabbed activity. Is it MVX tab activity? MVX tab activity, and then I need to change my layout, and this is where I'm going to start by cheating. So you can see my default layout kind of has this linear layout and edit text and text view, and I don't really want that. I would like proper Android tabs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go across to an existing sample, and this existing sample has a tab view called Page Home. This is the conference sample, and you can see it here. What you have is you have a tab host, and inside it you then put your linear layout with your tab widget and your frame layout, and you can change the ordering of these if you want your tabs at the bottom rather than the top and all that sort of thing. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that exactly as it is, and I'm going to copy it across and put it in here. And you'll notice as well that this layout, you'll notice as well that this layout here, just copying that res auto line so that I can use it. This layout has a has hard-coded IDs, which are Android IDs for things like tab host and tabs and tab content, and that's really important because that's the way that Android actually knows where to put the tabs and where to put the content when the tabs are clicked. So that's the way that's done. And then what you can do in first view is you actually need to set up the tabs. So let's just take a look at this. So this obviously won't build at the moment just because the resources aren't there. So if we build it, hopefully it'll build. Yeah, so that's built, knows it's succeeded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this conference sample, and I'm just going to pull out again the view that is the home view. And conference is quite a big sample, so you know it may be a bit, oops, I'm in touch, that's why I can't see the home view. And you know, you don't need to look at a sample this big to work out how it works. So here's home view, and you can see that inside home view what I do is I've got a whole load of specs that I set up. And then I literally, you know, just add in these tabs for each one. So I'm going to do the same type of code, and let me just copy the first one of those across to here. So first of all I inflate, and then what I do is I just get hold of this tab host, and I get hold of the intent, and all I want to do is I want to create these tab specs. So the first one is child 1, because it's going to be child 1. And I'm not going to use internationalization, which is what that previous code does. I'm just going to set the simplest possible indicator, which is just some text. Yeah, and in fact I'll just use 1, 2, 3. And then what you do to set the content, you can see this here hopefully, is you set the content using a create intent for, and you use the child that you want to do. So obviously we need here to get the view model child. So what you can do is, in order to do that, we'll just add a property here, protected, and what we'd like is we'd like the first view model. We'd like access to the thing that's actually our view model, and we do that, and we'll call it first view model. And all we need to do is return the base, but cast it to our particular view model. So all of the construction for our first view model, happens for us automatically. The MVX system works that out and makes sure that it gets constructed, and that actually happens in the base class onCreate. But we can then cast it to our type, our first view model, and we know it's a first view model because we're a first view. We can cast it to our type, and then we can use it. So now, hopefully, we should here be able to do first view model dot and child 1. So there you go, we've got a tab for that one. We can then add a few more tabs. I don't think we need all of these comments, so let's just do that. I think these comments are overkill here. And then let's copy this down and add the other 3 children. 2, 3. Right, so now what we do need to do is, 3. What we do need to do now is these, I'm really not doing my typing very well here with this slow machine at the moment. What we do need to do is we need to actually create the templates, the activity templates that will be used for each of these children. So let's quickly do that. Let's copy this first view and let's create some views for child 1, for example. So here we go. Child 1 view. What I'll do is I'll very quickly set this up. So child 1 view is going to be a linear layout. Yeah, it's going to fill the parent, and inside that linear layout we would like we don't want to use tab host obviously anymore. We'd like inside that linear layout to just have a text view, and we will fill the width in the parent. What we'd like to do, and I don't know if I've made this big enough for you, what we'd like to do is we'd like to use binding to fill that text view, so let's do it. Local mvxbind equals, and as you can probably remember for view 1 it was foo. So that's our child 1 view, and then let's quickly do the others. Child 2 and child 3. Child 2 view. Child 3 view. Right, so child 3 view didn't have a foo, it had a oink. Really testing my own memory. And child 2 didn't have a foo, it had a bar. So hopefully, and let me just add some colors to these as well. Let's just do it. Android : background equals, and I'll just use color codes for this. So this first one is going to be a dark red. So let's just do that. That's going to be a dark red will be something like a 50, whoops, hash 5000. That's a dark red for child 2. For child 1, I'll make it a dark blue, dark green, sorry, 0. And for child 3, I'll make it a dark blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that should now, hopefully, if we run this up, we set this as the startup project and we tell it to choose the Intel emulator and we hit F5, then hopefully that should build. See if there are any errors. And hopefully what we should see is packages. Okay, so I've still got a previous sample running here, but it's going to hopefully run up. Synchronizing assembly, so it is trying to run. Here comes my project. Let's get rid of this keyboard, although the keyboard seems stuck in place. Maybe this is an emulator issue. Okay, so it's hit a problem during debugging, and it's saying it couldn't find a view model. So I haven't actually managed to create my views. So that's the problem. It says it couldn't find the view for these things. So again, I just need to quickly create the views that go with those templates. So let's do that. So let's just quickly in here. This is going to be a child 1 view model. So this is a child 1 view. Doesn't need any access to its parent. So let's just do that. And let's just add that in. So here we go. Child 1 view. And then we need to have 2 more of those for child 2 and child 3. So child 3 goes to child 3. And child 2 goes to child 2. So you could get around this. There is actually a way of getting around having to generate these default templates each time. But I tend to leave these guys in because they are useful later down the line. Because generally you do put some code behind in these guys. So let's get this running again. Let's see whether or not I've got to child 1, child 2 and child 3. It says it's doing something. It is, hopefully. It's packaging the application. So back across to the emulator again. Wait for it to removing previous. Hopefully it's synchronizing assemblies, is it? Or has it decided? Here it goes. So it's up and running, and this time we get another problem, and this time it's saying there's a tab host. So I cut and paste that too quickly. So I created a tab activity, but really these guys are just normal activities again. So I'm rushing to stand still here, sorry. So those guys go back to normal activities, so they are just normal activities, the type we created hundreds of before. And it's only this first view that's going to be a tab activity. Apologies for that. And again, hopefully this time we'll do this. Let me try shutting down the Android debug monitor as well. See if that helps. Hopefully this time it creates it. Let's see. Right, so now we've got R1, R2 and R3, and you can see the data binding. Hopefully, I should have made this bigger. You can see the data binding is happening correctly within each child view. So you can see that you have the default thing. You can also see we don't have any graphics up here. If you want graphics, then there was a call here to the set indicator. And what you can do is you can pass in a graphics object. So let me just do that briefly. So you can pass in a drawable. And again, what I'm going to do here is cheat. So I'm going to create a new drawable by cheating. So let me just add an existing one. So to do that, what I do is I'm going to go to an existing project, project/misc/ MvvmX tutorials/ and this is going to be just an existing one. So I'll go again to the conference sample, and in the conference sample I've got these resources which allow me to do this. So there's a drawable here, and I can use something like, so I've got a tab for tweets, for example, and in that tab for tweets, apart from the zoom size here, you can see I've got @bar Twitter that I use. So I'm going to use that as well. So let's just do that and that. So I add those two guys across. So you can see all I've done is I've dragged in @bar Twitter.png, which is just a normal graphic. Yeah, just a little Twitter bird. And I drag in tab tweets. And tab tweets just has this XML. So it's just saying, in the selected state, please draw my @bar Twitter. And in the unselected, please draw my @bar Twitter. And then when I've done that, what I can do is back in the tab selector, in the tab creator, in the set indicator, so I'll do this just for the third tab, I can do a new drawable, and I do that by, let me just see how I do this. I think I need to look up the code and cheat here. So what I'll do is I'll go back to that previous sample, and you can see what I do is I use resources, get drawable, and the Twitter. So let's just do that. Oops. So what I do is that line there, resources, get drawable, and I just pass in the tab tweets, and that should hopefully compile for me. And obviously you could use a different one for each one if you wanted to, or you could use it for multiple. It's not a worry. So let's just show that working. Only the third one's going to have this for now, but that should be okay. Hopefully it's building. Is it building? Seems to be doing something. Okay, it's building. Hopefully it'll go across. Copying application to device, synchronizing assemblies. Oops, still synchronizing. Couldn't connect. Have I broken it? Okay, so that was just a debug problem. Let's just see whether it happens both times or whether it's going to be happy. Gosh, it's doing the phone as well. I didn't want it to do that. Maybe I shouldn't have killed the other program. Let me just start that up again. C:\Android/monitor.bat. Let me start that back up. Maybe that was actually keeping my simulator alive and I've destroyed it. At the moment it's just complaining that it can't connect to Logcat, so it's just refusing to start. So let's just see whether or not this gives it any extra life. I have a feeling I may have to restart Visual Studio, but let's just see. So it claims to be going ahead. It's copying the application device, synchronizing assemblies, and this time, oh, it's not looking happy. Oh no, it's going to run. So there was some problem there with the emulator and with Xamarin.Android. I'm not going to debug that live. It would appear, however, that it's not totally happy. Let's just see. Gosh, it really is dragging here, and you can hear my fan maybe in the background. I'm wondering if I'm going to see the blue colour any moment. Right, so we now at least it's having some issues with life. I'm definitely going to move away from Android very soon, but you can at least see here, hopefully, that we have got our Twitter bird. You know, so that's how you set if you do want an icon as well in these tabs. And as I say, if you want the tabs at the bottom rather than the top, then that can be tweaked in that XML layout. But I think I'm pushing my luck at the moment with this demo. So let me do one last thing. Hopefully I can debug out of this. Let me just do one last thing in Android, which is that in the Windows Phone sample, we do also have this button. So let's just add a button. And let me close it in XML. So, oops. So we're going to just add a button. And this button, what we're going to do is, we don't want it to fill the width, the height anymore. We're just going to do it with wrap content. So this button, what we'd like to do is we'd like its, we don't mind having its text as foo as well, but we do need that when you hit click on this button, then we need go command to happen. And when you hit go command, what we'd like to do is show the grandchild view. So again, what we need to do is come across here, and where we had a child view, we're going to have a grandchild view. Let's do it. Let's quickly add a grandchild. That's our grandchild view, and let's just add some XML for it. Grandchild view. And assuming I haven't upset it too much, then in this one, I believe for this, did we call it? We called it life. It was bound to Heidi, and what we'll do is we will make this color a I don't know what this is going to be, a dark yellow of some description or something like that, perhaps green and blue. No, probably. Anyway, we'll find out. So what we'll do is we'll run this one up, and now what we should do is we should see, as long as we're lucky with our emulator and we haven't pushed it too far, we should see that when we run this up we can also navigate, and it'll navigate the whole page. It won't navigate within a tab. And then we'll come on to, you know, kind of our final sample, which is going to be about touch. And there we'll see the navigation within a tab. So hopefully this will set it up. So what we should do here is, you can see we've got our button hopefully there. So hopefully that's a button. No, what have I done wrong? Let's just see, do we have a button anymore? Have I done this wrong? So what I've got wrong, and this is quite common for Windows developers, is this linear layout here by default is actually a horizontal linear layout, and we want it to be a vertical one. So this is really common for Windows programmers, because Windows programmers are used to stack panel, and stack panel by default is vertical, so you quite often hit this one. And now finally I might be able to run this, and then I can escape across to iOS. Let's see. So that was working there, it just unfortunately wasn't displaying very neatly, because it was displayed off the right hand side of the screen. So now hopefully you can see we've got hello foo, and then underneath we've got this button. We've got this hello bar, we've got this 42. If we hit the button, and what you can see is we go across to this child view, and you can see we've no longer got tabs because we've navigated the entire activity, the entire page. If you go back, then you get back to these tabs. So that's how tabs work within Android, using the old mechanism, using activities. And I will come on to talk in a future one about using fragments, but this is using activities for now. So hopefully that gives you a good intro to that. Sorry about whatever my processor problems are in the background, and I hope the fan's not too loud on the soundtrack. So that's Android. Let's just quickly do touch as well. So we're going to go and we're going to create a new touch project. So go to iOS, and again, I'm not going to use iPad, although you can at the moment. I'm just going to create one for Windows Phone. So this is tab.touch, and that should work in that directory. And we'll first of all we'll add a reference to our core project. Yeah, something is going very slow here. I may be better off restarting Visual Studio, but I'm feeling like I should push this through, so I will. So I'm going to do MvvmCross and do install. So what we now get is we get app.delegate.cs.txt. I'll just copy that across on top of our app delegate. And what we then need to do is, we've obviously at this stage, hopefully we've built. Let's just see. Okay, at this stage it won't build because there's some binding in first view we need to remove. But at least we can build to a certain level here. So what we now get is our first view we'd like to change into a tab view. So to do this again, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go across to that conference sample. And you can see in the conference sample how we set this guy up. And what we inherit from in the conference sample is we inherit from an MVX tab bar view controller rather than inheriting from a UI view controller, an MVX view controller. So that's exactly what we're going to do here as well. We're going to inherit from a tab bar view controller. We're obviously not going to change the background color now. And then what we need to do is just take a look at how it puts things together. And what you can do, what you see here, is that there are a few helper methods here, like create tab for, which uses this private, and then a set title and tab bar item. And I'm just going to copy those for now. And it's a bit cheating, sorry to copy this code, but it is generally what I do when I need to create some new tabs. So there's a few things need pushing in there. And what you can see, hopefully, let me just talk through this, is I won't worry about some of the tint color or any of that because that can be customized later. And I'll start by let me include the image name, that's fair. So the title is just going to be the title. I haven't got any internationalization going on here. And what you can see here, hopefully, is that we've got a couple of methods. One of them is set title and tab bar item. You can see all that does is set title, and it loads a tab bar item using images/tabs. So let's just add some images/tabs. New folder, images, and in that I'll put a new folder called tabs. And then within that, what I'll do is I'll add some existing items. So if I'm lucky, no I'm not, it'll have gone to a new place. So let's go again to the conference sample. And what I'll do is misc/mvxtutorials/sample conference. And then I'm not sure if I linked these or not, so let's just see if they're just there. Icons, tabs. So what I've got here is I've got 4 tabs, and I'll just take 3 of them because we're only going to have 3 children. So we've got favorites, home, and Twitter, and hopefully those have all been included as content. So you can see the build action on these guys is content. Yeah, so that's what they're set up as. That's cool. And then what I should be able to do is actually just use this bit of code. So we looked at set title and tab bar item. That's just to set up what the tab bar item is going to look like. Then what we also have here is we have a method called create tab for, and each tab we're going to pass in the string and the image name, and we're going to pass in the view model we want within the tab. And you can see what it does is it calls create view controller for the view model, and then it just uses that and it pushes it in there, controller.pushViewModel. Yeah, so what it's got is within each tab we're going to have a UI navigation controller, and within each UI navigation controller we're going to have a single item at the moment. Yeah. So this is where navigation's slightly different for tabs within the iOS. You don't have to do this. I'll show you that in a moment. But for now, that's the way I'm putting these things together. And then what we finally need to do is just actually set up these tabs. So to do that, what I do again is I'm just going to take a look at how this is done, and it's done this way. And we've got some code we need to push in here. So I'm going to get rid of all this existing stuff. And what we can see is that we get here some setup. And so first of all, what we do is we create an array of UI view controllers, and we're only going to have 3 of these. And these are going to be, and so which images did we include? We included favorites, home, and Twitter. So I've got rid of one of my images already. Favorites, sessions is the one I didn't have. So now what we can do is we'll just put these two through child1.view model. Okay, again we have to do this trick because we want to get hold of the view model in the right format. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast it. So we're going to get a first view model. What we'll do is we'll just expose its property here. So protected, first view model, first view model. We'll let ReSharper include that for us. And then what we can do here is we'll just do get, and we'll return the base one, base.view model as first view model. So that's our first view model access, and now we should, so that'll be a .child1. And again, we just need to do this for the other 2. So .child1, .child2, .child3. For titles, we'll just give them 1, 2, 3. And you can see the rest of the code here is we just set view controllers equal to view controllers. We don't have any customizable ones, so we just left that. Customizable is if you have more than 3, you can have a ... at the end, or sorry, more than 5, I think, on the default iOS for iPhone, and it's like 7 for iPad. If you have that, then you can also have customizable ones where you can drag them in and out type thing. And then we select which one is currently selected, which is going to be the first one. So this should on its own almost work, but there is a little bit more we need to do. And the reason we need to do a little bit more here is because the base class constructor, somewhere down deep in UI view controller, in UI tab bar controller, inside UI kit, during construction, what happens is it actually constructs the view before all of the C# classes have been constructed. And so this is a bit unfortunate, but what we have to do is we just have to work around it by, so what we do is we fake up a call ourselves of calling viewDidLoad, and we call it a second time after everything has been constructed. And so to make sure to stop this underlining, we just seal this class, because otherwise we get a virtual method called there. And what we do here is just to make sure if we get called early, then we'll know we've been called early because view model will still be null at this stage. So if it's null at this stage, then we just abort. Otherwise we carry on. So that is a bit fiddly. I think we may have encountered it once before in our code, and maybe in a tab bar controller earlier on in these N+1s. But what you have to do is, you know, there's a need this hack because UI kit need this hack. Let's call it need this additional call to viewDidLoad because UI kit creates the view before the C# hierarchy is being constructed. And this is unfortunate, but there's nothing we can do about it. So at this stage we just, you know, work around it by doing this additional call to viewDidLoad. So with that done, let's just see whether or not this will build at the moment. Okay, so it looks like that builds, but again we haven't at the moment got our view controllers for child1, child2, child3. So let's quickly create some. So we need a public class child1 view, and this is going to be an MvvmCross view controller. And what we need to do in this child1 view is we need to override viewDidLoad. And we'll do the base.viewDidLoad, and then what we need to do for this child1 view is set up some binding. So we'll do a var label equals new UI label. We'll give it a rectangle, which is going to be 10, 10. We'll give it 300 width and 40 height. And we'll add the label. And then what we need to do is bind it. So to bind it, what we do is we can just do it using this .create binding. Normally you see me doing this using a set, but seeing as there's only one, I'm just going to do it directly. I'm going to create binding to, and in this case, so this is a create binding. And do I need to give the view model here? No, it's the view model here, and so this is going to be a child1 view model we're binding to, and so this is vm.foo, and then we just need to apply that. So that's our child1 view model. Let's quickly do child2 and child3. So child2, we take hold of this, child2, and so 2 is to bar, and child3 is going to be child3, and then let's also, just for completeness, let's do some colors as well. And child3 was to oink, wasn't it? So let's just do some colors as well. So here what we'll do is we will do view equals new UI view, and we'll just set the background color. Background color equal to UI color dot dark gray for that one. This one is going to be to magenta. I have some very odd colors here, and this one, child3, will be to aqua. No, there isn't an aqua, to a orange. So hopefully at this stage we should be able to build this, and then what I'll try and do is connect across the network. Okay, so that's hopefully built. So let's change this to iPhone Simulator, see whether or not we get a connection. Set this as the default project. Go setting. Right, so we're going to try and launch it on the Retina iPhone, and we're going to try a debug start new, and let's get type VNC viewer up and running. And again, we'll need to enter the password, so that's password, and hopefully that's going to connect on the network. And I better have to enter password again. So password. Okay, so it started up, and you can see immediately we've got some interesting effects here on the screen. Let me just zoom in a little. Windows scale. Right, this brings us up to 100%. So what you can see on our device here is we've definitely got some interesting effects, because we've got 2 navigation bars at the moment. We do have 3 tabs, so here's tab 2, here's tab 3, tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. You can see the images are pulled across quite nicely, there's no worries there. And you can see we've got our data binding correctly within the children, but we do have this issue at the moment with these double bars. So to get rid of those double bars, what we need to do is we need to change the presenter. So this is the whole point of talking about this as presenters. So for iPhone, as we saw last time, we can override the presenter by overriding it during setup. So we've got this setup code here, and let's just create a presenter. So let's do a my presenter, and let's override from the default presenter, which is going to be an MVX touch view presenter. Yep, and hopefully that should allow us to do that. And what we discover here is, what's it saying? Is it's saying we need to add parameters for our constructors, so let's add those, generate constructors. And you can see we're just passing those down. And then what we get is we get these additional methods we can override. So let's just override one of these. And the first one we want to override is to create our first presenter, which is the create navigation controller. So this is the navigation controller that's going right around the outside. So what we're overriding first of all is this navigation controller that, I don't know if I can draw on this. This navigation controller right around the outside is the one that's causing us pain to start with. So what I want to do is I want to override that so that it doesn't have this bar at the top. So let's just do that. What we can do here is we can do a so the base class is creating this for us, var to return equals base, And what we're going to do is we're just going to call toReturn dot, and we'd like to see the navigation bar hidden. So we're going to hide it, equals true, and then we'll return it. And again, I'll just make sure it's got capitalization that I can be proud of later. So this is a nav bar. So if we just change that, then we can here in the setup class, we can return this. So let's just do that. Override, create, and somewhere here is the create presenter. And I think for this we will need to store the window again, we said last time. So let's just try this. So what we're going to do is, instead of returning the base class presenter, here we're going to return a new myPresenter. And to do myPresenter, we need to have access to these two guys, so we're going to have to store them. So let's just store them as private members. This, I think, has already been fixed in the source, in the master branch for 3.0, so you wouldn't need to do this in the future, but right now you need to store these two references so you can use them again. Application delegate equals application delegate, and window equals window. And once you've done that, then you can use here application delegate and window. So that now means you should have myPresenter. So if we just make that one change and run it up, then let's see what happens over on the VNC view. So that's building. Hopefully it'll deploy soon. It's talking across the network. Alright, so there it goes, launching again, and hopefully, so now you can see we don't have that double at the top, and it's a much nicer experience. And so you can see that's the way it's put together. Now what we can do very quickly is let's just do some experimenting. And what we can do is we're going to add in a grandchild view. So let's go back in here into first view, and let's just add in a grandchild view. So here we go. And so our grandchild view is going to be here. Grandchild, and our grandchild view as background color we'll put in a red, just so you know it's grandchild. And obviously here it's a grandchild view model you want to bind to, and think this had a life, so that's what it's going to be. And then in order to navigate to this, what we're going to do is we're just going to add a button to child 1 view. So let's do it. And so we're going to add a button, var button, this new UI button. We'll make this a UI button type dot rounded rect, and the button dot frame will set to a suitable rectangle, and that's going to be a so this is x10 50 300 40, and we'll give it a title as well, button dot set title go. And that's for UI control state normal. And so we'll then add the button. So that's our button added, and we just need to bind it. So again, we can do that using this inline binding, and this is where a set might have been nicer rather than just doing it one by one, but works either way. So the button, its default property is its touch up command, and that's touch up inside, and that's going to be bound to go command. So we can see that's our button bound, and we've got a grandchild view that's going to link to our grandchild view model. So now if we rerun, then what we should see is the default behavior that we'll get just without doing anything special in the presenter. So hopefully that's going to run up. So you can see we've got our button there. We've got our, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me just open that up again. We've got our default things. If we hit go, then what you'll see is the whole page navigates, and we've also at the moment got no way of navigating back, so that's a bit of a disaster in some ways. But what you would prefer to do is to see that navigation happen inside of the tab. So let's do that. So in order to do that, this presenter here, the path that's going through is that this presenter, which we put inside setup, is being called, and it's being called on show. Yeah. And so it's being called on show with this view, and it doesn't know how to show that view at the moment. So all it's doing is it's pushing it into the top level navigation controller, and the top level navigation controller, as we know, has got its bar hidden. So you could unhide the view if you wanted to here. Let's just do that quickly. If view is grandchild, ooh, this is gonna be an interesting one. Grandchild view. Yeah, so if the view is the grandchild view, then what you could do is you could have stored the navigation bar, or maybe it's even, yeah, it's even exposed there. So what you could do is you could set it here so that you unhide it when that happens. And let's just show you what the effect that has. So let's rerun this. That's not, you know, this isn't what I'd normally do, but just to show you that you can access these things afterwards. Obviously you'd also want to intercept things in the back direction if you do this as well, so there's more work to do, but this will be a good first demo. So after that change, when we've got our normal setup, 1, 2, 3, if we now go, then hopefully what you should see is we get this back button. However, when you go back, it doesn't hide it at the moment, so there's more work to do. But instead of that, we really want to navigate inside the child tab, so let's just do that. So let's stop that run and let's go back, and what we really want to do here then is, if the view is a grandchild view controller, then really we want to do something else here. So what we really want to do is we want to get hold of the tab controller, the tab bar, and do that. So there are plenty of ways you could hook this up. You could kind of, you know, cache the result here. So let's just do that to start with. Let's have a private, and to do this we'll have just a first view underscore first view, and what we'll do is whenever we show a view, we'll just test, is it a first view. So let's just do this. This obviously isn't a scalable way of doing it, but if view is first view, then what we'll do is we will just cache it. So underscore first view equals, and this is going to be view as first view. Yeah, so that's just a cached result. And now what we can do is, if the view is a grandchild controller, if underscore first view is not equal to null, which obviously because of our application flow will always be true, but we just want to check here. If the first view is not equal to null, then let's call a method first view dot show grandchild, and what we'll do is we'll just pass in the grandchild view. Obviously this method doesn't exist at the moment, so let's just add it using resharper, create method, away it goes. And so what we need to do is just add some logic to it, and so what we'll do is we'll get hold of the selected view controller, which is there. So we'll do that. Let's just get rid of this. So what we'll do is the selected view controller, and I think the selected view controller isn't a navigation controller by default, but we know because here we created them as navigation view controllers, so we know that this is going to be a navigation controller. Oops, UI navigation controller. So this is going to be the current nav equals, and so what we're going to do is we're just going to call current nav dot push view controller, and we'll push in the grandchild. So this is view as UI view controller, and we obviously want to animate it in this case, so we call true. So that's our showing a grandchild, and hopefully that should just work for us. So let's try that. Debug, start new. Now you could have done more here. You could have changed the current tab if you want to. You could do other things, but typically you don't want to change current tab because that's not the user experience that people expect from tabs. They expect the user to choose the tabs. So this is just one way of showing it, and hopefully this will just work for us. Let's see. So we launch it up. We've got our normal tabs 1, 2, and 3. If we hit the button now, then what we should see is within the tab. So you've still got 2 and 3 present. But within the tab, we now have this kind of child. Obviously, we don't have a title set for the child, but you can tweak that if you want to. Let me just show you that. So let's just do that in the view. So the child 1 view, where's the grandchild view? So the grandchild, you can easily set a title here. Title equals grandchild. So there's the title. And you can also, if you want to, for example, on the one view, on the child one, you could customize the back behavior as well. So if you go to the navigation item for this view, and you go to the back bar button item, then I think you can set the title on this. Here's the title equal to, if this was, let's not call it home, let's call it kid one, because then you'll know that it's not, any default behavior that's going on here. So now if you do that, then hopefully when we run this up, we should see, it's going to take a little while to deploy, we should see when that runs up that you get kind of a better behavior within the tab. So obviously this is only for iOS. For Android and Windows Phone you just don't see this kind of navigation within a tab, but for iOS it's there. And obviously this could be combined. Oops, that didn't look so good. I think I may have not maybe set the back bar button item. Navigation item dot let me just set back bar button item equals new UR bar button item, and I will set the title of that. Set it to that, and gosh, it didn't like that one at all, did it? Let's just see that. Hopefully that's what I meant to do. I may have messed up, in which case I'm not going to push this point because it wasn't what this was about. But you can set the back bar title for child 1, I hope. See if that deploys. Right, so now if you push 1, then you can see kid 1 there. Right, it's a bit small. You can see kid 1 has come up as the back item. So that's the way you can push this together. And obviously if you had child of 2 and 3, they could independently kind of navigate in without worrying about it. Another thing you could have done if you wanted, for example, is you could have used a modal display, so that there's actually a modal presenter available within MvvmCross. I'm not going to talk about that one just now, because I think I pushed my luck with this back bar button, and I probably talked too long already anyway. But I hope that at least gives you a first view into these kind of presenters and into tab displays, and it didn't take long to do. And just to remind again where we started on this, back in the tabs. So we started with, the tabs are simple. You've seen this now hopefully across all 3 platforms, including Windows Phone, where we have these odd tabs, which are pivots and panoramas. I only showed you a panorama, pivot's pretty much the same. In Android and Windows, when you navigate away from a tab, then what you do is you kind of always replace the whole page. You can do that in iOS as well, but you have to kind of tweak things. Or alternatively, iOS, you can navigate within a tab, and then you kind of just get this back button at the top using a UI navigation bar controller. Right, someone's calling me, and I hope that was useful. That was N=25. And I don't know what's coming next. I might just do a quick modal one, seeing as I mentioned it. Or maybe it's time to talk about fragments as well. So I hope that's useful. Please, by all means, let me know if I'm not useful or if I am useful. Yeah, that was tabs, and I hope it was good for you.